So we are live. It has been confirmed by Horace, therefore it is the truth. Hi, my name is Luke. With us is Horace. Say hi, Horace.
Hello.
And you may not see him. He is dialing in because he is on a road trip up to one of the Carolinas. Halston is there. Say hi, Halston.
Yay, yay.
There it is.
Hi,
Yep.
everyone.
All right. So this is definitely an interesting thing that we have never done before, as far as trying to host a show with one of our guys just calling in. So we'll see how it goes. No promises. No promises at all. Check us out, Facebook, Uncivil Liberty Show. Of course, all the other social medias. We're on MeWe. I don't know if you guys have been
Yep.
keeping up with MeWe. We actually have a group. If you want to join in on the shenanigans, our group is actually pinned at the top of our page. So if you want to get in the MeWe stuff and troll it
Yes.
and
Don't
be a
we
dick,
actually have two groups?
maybe we do. I don't know.
We do,
Did
yeah. I created one, and Luke
Oh,
created
you
one, but
created one. Oh shit, I'm an asshole
you
then.
just keep yours. I don't like mine.
All right, so we're keeping ours,
Yeah, we'll
and
keep ours. We'll
okay,
lose mine.
okay,
I'll
that's
just
fine.
change mine to like nudie pics or something.
That will probably get a lot more followers than what we've got.
Hey,
No doubt about it.
Mayway allows it, so.
I'm
By
cool with it.
God.
Don't bother me at all. And of course, Twitter, podcast, YouTube, all that happy horse shit. Far as new announcements to kind of go with, we actually went last Sunday. I don't know if you've been seeing the live videos that we did, the receipt that I posted. We went ahead, got it all squared away and taken care of. $500 or $547.18, something like that.
But who's
Anyways,
counting?
who's counting? We dropped that. We dropped that at Dollar Tree. And then Monday
Ballin'.
morning, yeah, balling like ballers. Let me tell you, there was like 4 carts?
It
Five.
was 6 carts on the way out or something like that.
Yeah, 6
Five.
carts on the way out.
No, it's five.
It definitely put a dent in my minivan, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But still, loaded up on school supplies and took it over to the Crisis Center, North Alabama, Monday morning. And for those of you who are still doubting that we actually did anything, once I have the letter from them, I will happily post that on Facebook. And that way, the little cocksuckers who are running around thinking that
Fucking
we're
Dale.
scamming people, yeah, Dale for one, no problem, because that'll be your proof. But anyways, for those of you who contributed, greatly appreciate it. For those who wanted to but couldn't afford it, we're gonna be doing something again here soon. And for those of you who didn't and have no interest in doing it, well, fuck you. That's what I gotta say about that. But anyways, so that's all squared away in the bag. We're gonna start focusing a lot more on the next one that we're gonna do. We're looking at probably doing something in Birmingham, and we're gonna try to spread this out across the state. I'm leaning towards. I'm still kind of up in the air between either going the maybe the animal rescue route or I'll maybe feed the homeless route, something like that. If you guys have good ideas and you're listening, hit our page, send us a message, comment on this video, whatever. I know nothing when it comes to Birmingham. I try to stay away from Jefferson County as much as possible. So I don't know what all is going on down there. So if you're in that area and you think there's this one charity or this one charitable action or cause that we could help support that kind of fits in with the libertarian ideology, we'll do it. We'll raise some more money, take it down to Birmingham. Outside of that, did you have anything to add to that, Horace Halston?
Hell no.
The only thing I
Knocked
have
it out
to
of the
add.
park.
The only thing I have to add is, for anyone who has been to our website recently,
It is down.
yes, we
On
have
purpose.
yes, we have taken it
On
down.
purpose.
As it says, it is being worked on. We're playing with some new toys, so
We're actually gonna put some money into it, for one.
Let's
That's
not get
something
carried away. Let's not get carried away.
And when I say money, I'm talking like a solid $20. Like maybe 15 if we're lucky. I'm gonna try to find a discount code on everything. But yeah, we're gonna put a little more effort into it. Try to kind of spruce it up, make it sexy. About as sexy as a libertarian podcast can be with these three guys. What else?
As soon as I get all the video files, I will be doing a massive edit on what we did record the other day, including what you haven't seen yet.
Right, we have some behind-the-scenes footage. that I know you're waiting on bated breath for. I know that
So,
all the viewers and all the listeners, I cannot wait to see the video.
and this is going to be done all fancy and shit, all
Fancy.
professional.
It
With
needs to
explosions.
Intros,
explosions, yes.
outros.
It needs to have that 1970s like type font on the screen, kind of like
Yeah.
Better Call Saul, where it has that just horribly 70s type font.
I will see what I can do.
We need that. That
give
is
me
a must.
Give me a font name, and I will see if I can't put it into it.
Wingding.
Yes, and it's all in wingdings. All in fucking wingdings.
Do wingdings and fucking
so,
explosions, and we'll be good to go.
So hopefully, probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll actually have the live action video of everything kind of pieced together with our editor in chief, Horace, putting that together for us. And I'm trying to think.
Basically, just cut up all the really shitty jokes that I was saying the whole time because they were pretty fucked up. So
and I
can get rid of those.
I mean, I usually look pretty rough, but let me tell you, I look fucking rough in that video. And then lastly, we're going to touch on we've got this thing going on in Birmingham in June. I wouldn't say so much we as an Uncivil Liberty. I am helping get this put together. I am not obligating anybody else on this podcast in any way, shape, or form. But we've got Josh Smith coming in. We're trying to get a bunch of speakers. We're gonna make a day of it, getting together. I think we have the venue secured. We have the dates locked down. We're gonna be pushing out the announcement here probably the next couple of weeks. So you definitely keep your calendar somewhat open in the June 16th time frame. We're gonna have I think it's gonna be like about $55 a ticket, but that comes with food, a lot of hors d'oeuvres, and a cash bar. And we're trying to get some relatively big name speakers to come in, so it may actually be a fun day to kind of just come and hang out, shoot the shit, throw back some drinks and have fun. But outside of that, tonight's topic: what is crime? Baby, don't hurt me, no more.
No more.
No more. That's the only reason why I gave it that title is because it just kind of flowed. Like, fuck it, why not?
I thought it was awesome.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
That was really great.
Okay, so I have two people who thought it was good. That's all I live for.
Uncivil Liberty loves Uncivil Liberty's title.
Just two. Yes. This is the most narcissistic podcast ever.
We're extraordinarily humble.
Extraordinarily humble. Exactly right. So we talked about the different anarcho schools of thought. I think it was last week was the topic.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Okay, great. Search how well I keep up with things.
Different
anarcho. I'm sorry.
What was last week?
It was what was last week? Okay, who cares? Who gives a shit?
Trolls. How government gets
okay.
in the door.
Perfect.
Oh yeah.
So
wait a minute. So you mean that we discussed liberty the past 2 weeks and we weren't so uncivil?
Yeah, actually we were.
We were still fairly uncivil, but
for those of you who don't know, that is a stab to our most recent troll on the page.
Yes.
Yeah. Fuck, man. Anyways, I'm sorry. Proceed.
So we're kind of discussing the whole anarcho side thing, and one of the biggest questions when you start going down this whole route of anarcho anything, people are like, what about crime? How are we going to enforce crime? What are you going to do about crime? What is crime? That's a great question. What is crime? You see nowadays, you see a lot of abuse of law enforcement. You hear, and especially in the libertarian side of things, it's kind of divided whether police are heroes versus police are trash. There's not a lot of middle ground. Maybe a little bit, but for the most part, it's very polarizing standpoint. Well, in a truly free society, going back to the original definition of anything anarcho, it's not no rules, it's no rulers. Meaning that there will be rules in play, but how do you enforce them? How do you go about doing this without necessarily utilizing force? Should you use force? There's a lot of questions that surround this concept, not as many answers, and the answers you get a lot of times are very convoluted or just borderline retarded. So, Halston, we'll let you kick this bad boy off.
Let me kick this motherfucker off. You guys just jump in if I start breaking up. But I'm good right now, right?
Oh yeah, so far you're good.
Perfect.
Yeah, Megan said it was 2 weeks ago. Thank you, Megan, for keeping us on track.
Thank you, Megan, for keeping up with our shit.
God knows we aren't.
Yeah, no shit.
Speak for yourselves.
Right, yeah, we are. Right, so in my mind, like in today's society, a crime is any action for which you can be punished by the state, pretty much. Like, and when I say the state, not like the state of Alabama. I mean, most of the people who are listening to us probably understand what the state is by now. But you can be punished by police or the feds or the fucking wildlife or the EPA or whatever. And that's what we see as a crime, even though there are traffic violations. It's not criminal court. Speeding is not a crime, so to speak. But when you talk about with other people who are not as liberty minded, that's one of those quote unquote crimes that they're always looking to make sure we have cops for, right? So if we don't have police officers, who's going to stop people from speeding? Or if we don't have the EPA, who's going to stop people from polluting? And there's these pseudo crimes that don't really affect anyone, so to speak, right? Speeding doesn't affect anyone unless you barrel into someone and kill them. You could also do that at fucking 25 miles per hour. I've seen a few wrecks where people have died at low speed. So it's kind of it's a weird catch to call these things crimes or to even suggest that someone should be punished for something that they may do in the future. So what do you guys think about that?
Given where we're at, I mean, in today's society, yes, you just basically covered what a crime is, which is not even remotely anything like what a crime would be in a truly libertarian, anarcho, society. Because in that case, for it to be a crime, there must be a victim. Take speeding, for instance. There's no victim. Now, if you hit someone, at that point, it's not the speeding that was the crime. It was the actual hitting someone.
Right.
There's a victim then. Until that point, there's no victim. With most crimes, there's no victim. And oddly, one of the things that we see today that is not considered to be a crime, that would be considered a crime in an anarcho society, would be the way police do their jobs. They, like I said, for something to be a crime, there has to be a victim. And to be a victim, it requires basically some kind of initiation or threat thereof of force or fraud.
Or injury of one's person, property, or so on and so forth.
Right. Yeah. That's the way I've always lumped things together. It's like when someone's like, well, what rules are there supposed to be? Like, oh, it's pretty simple, right? In layman's terms, don't fucking hurt people and don't take their shit. Like that's pretty simple. It doesn't really cover everything that involves force or threat of force, but that's pretty much sums it up. Don't be a dickhead and everything will be fine. I mean, that's it. But yeah, I mean, you have to get a little bit specific, right? I mean, are we talking about when someone comes onto your property and trespasses? There's no real crime there, right? Or they have to be taking something from you, or there has to be some sort of victim, like you said, like some sort of harm, I guess is the right word, maybe.
In the case of trespassing, we'll use that. We'll take that one out. The way I tend to see it, and this seems to be the more popular and more common train of thought, is that merely doing so in and of itself is not a crime. Now, once you have made them aware of what they're doing and asked them to leave, if they then refuse, they are then effectively using a form of force to stay there.
Sure.
At which point, yes, a crime has been committed. That's why you can't just, if somebody walks across your yard, you can't go out your door and start shooting.
Right.
That's not kosher.
Really? Okay.
And
did not know that. I'll definitely put that on the whiteboard in the kitchen to make sure we don't keep shooting the neighbors.
Yeah.
Although, mind you, there are some people that will say it's okay. They're in the vast minority, though.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. Well, that kind of brings us to another point that maybe a little prematurely, but how would we go about dealing with someone who does commit a crime? Because when you talk, there's so many different trains of thoughts on this. Not just in, I mean, we know how the libertarian circles go. There's if there's 14 people in a group, there's 15 opinions. But
Yeah.
when we got like
So true.
there's also a liberal approach. There's a conservative approach, like not historically conservative or liberal, but what we see now in
Right.
Democrats and Republicans, to save the banter. But it's like, is it an eye for an eye? Is it no? Let's just lock them up in a room for 25 years. Like where do we go from there? And is there some sort of escalation for punishment? Like there's when we're talking, we'll just take like sexual harassment. So there's touching and there's talking, right? There's rude and lewd comments. There's threats of force. There's actual touching. There's harm, right? And then we work ourselves up to like a rape charge, right? Which would be the worst, I would imagine. That I can't think of anything worse than rape. But would punishment step up like the crime steps up? I should say. Is that right? Am I wording that correctly?
Well, this is one of the areas where there is a lot of disagreement.
Yes.
On
Wait,
the
all right, wait, hold up.
Imagine that.
Are you telling me that there's disagreement inside libertarian circles? Say it is not
Yes.
so. Say it is
Oh,
not so. I have never seen that in my entire life.
No, this is one area where there's a great deal of disagreement on how that should be handled.
Christina says scarlet letter. Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
One of the things that does seem to be a common theme, though, is that, okay, when we talk about an anarcho society, we are typically talking about a society that is based around the non-aggression principle. Okay, which of course we've covered it on here, but I'll give a quick rundown. Basically, it is always wrong and immoral to initiate force against someone or their property.
Right. That ties into the concept of individual sovereignty. That
Yes.
as a free people, as a free person, you are the absolute minority. You have sovereignty over yourself and your property.
Yes. Now, when you do commit a crime, in effect, you abrogate all of your rights under the non-aggression principle. So at that point, it's effectively fair game. Now, to try to keep things on an even keel, my personal view is, in a case like that, if the person can be captured and it can be proven in a court, which this would not be a court of law by the government, but a third-party court,
like a tribunal.
a tribunal, for instance, and they are adjudicated to be guilty, then at that point, the judge would talk to the victim or the victim's family, and ask, give them some options as to possible punishment, so that they can have a say in it.
Somewhat like the retribution, reparations for the crime.
Well, and the ideal solution, it would be for them to do something that would give reparations as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it meant, say, for a rape charge, for instance, the next 50 years, 75% of their pay goes to the victim.
Mm-hmm.
And they have, they're assigned a job, they have to work at it, they're not given a choice,
Yeah, but that also, in and of itself, entails a lot of, I guess, intellectual dishonesty, because what if they don't want to do it? Are you allowed to use force at that point? There's nothing in the anarcho-capitalist or even anarcho-communist mentality of things that is 100% foolproof. And then
Right.
a lot of times you get a lot of libertarians who are just like, well, what we have is the best that we can come up with, and that's kind of a weak way to look at it. It's just kind of like, I don't really feel like thinking right now. Let's just roll with what we have and just try to and let's just try to fix the cancer instead of getting rid of it.
Well, like I said, though, when it comes to restitution, whether they want to or not, as soon as they committed that crime, they've abrogated their rights under the non-aggression principle. They are no longer covered by it.
So I
So,
get that. I get that.
you know,
And then Megan popped up and she's like, people are vengeful. She doesn't know if that could ever be fair. And there's, we've kind of been entrained to believe that revenge is a bad thing, that vengeance is a bad thing, and that's where you kind of have to look at it maybe from a different perspective. Is that maybe it's not necessarily wrong, and that would be a checks and balances in society to keep people from harming each other. Is that in the event that it happens, they have the right to seek revenge as much as they want to. Now, yes, not ideal. I totally get that, but from I guess as logical of a perspective as you can get, the person who should have the most say in situations like this are the ones who are offended. The problem that we've run into is that we've allowed a quote unquote disinterested third party to settle these issues, and you're not really seeing as I don't know, as much as level of fairness, or even like the victims actually having a say in the system as far as what they would like to see happen in order to feel that that the punishment is actually fitting the crime. They're for the most part removed. From time to time they may be able to speak during sentencing trials. Okay, but there have been times where people who have been convicted of murder, sent to death row, convicted to the death penalty, and the victims are like, no, we don't want that. What's the point of killing him? It's he gets a more or less a free pass. He gets to die sooner, and he doesn't have to live with the guilt and the shame of what he did. So, there's definitely flaws in our legal system, no doubt about it.
absolutely.
But there's also flaws in a lot of this logic and a lot of the philosophy when it comes to crime and punishment inside a libertarian or an anarcho type of society.
Sure.
Well,
Yeah. I mean, how do you, in a society like that, how do you guarantee that someone has a proper defense, right?
Right.
If we're in a free and open society and someone's like, hey, I'm a criminal attorney, let me help you argue your case, but it's sort of but it's really an ambulance chaser, which parallels what we see today with like public defenders, right? You just might get issued the dumbest motherfucker on the planet.
They call them public pretenders for a reason, and I've had one, and they are about as worthless as a pubic hair on the bottom of your sack. I mean, it's just they have no use. I mean, I could have honestly, even as young as I was, could have done a hell of a better job. It was pretty much kind of like, just take this, just do this, sign some papers and get out. There was no actual defense. It was pretty much just a quote unquote defender who's trying to streamline the process to clean up the court docket.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I see a lot too. That's I've had family members that end up in the same boat with huge stakes on the lines, like the rest of their lives. It's kind of puts you in a shitty pickle, and that's with the quote unquote protection of the Constitution and being and having this right to a fair trial, whatever fair means. But in a more open capitalist society where you can kind of there's no such thing as regulations or certifications, wouldn't we have to have some sort of
Oh, Halston, we're losing you. We're losing you, Halston.
God damn it.
Okay, you're back.
Right now.
For those of you who are playing the home game, Halston is actually traveling through BFE, Georgia right now. So if we lose him, we'll carry on without him. But he may break up from time to time.
And he's breaking up again.
He's breaking up again. Hold tight. Megan popped up, and she also said that if someone raped somebody that she loved, she'd want them dead. That's fair. And that kind of ties back into where if you know that somebody coming after you and killing you is on the line for committing a crime against them, people are going to be maybe a little less likely to pursue that course of action. But we don't know. There are people who currently are serial rapists who don't seem to really care, and they'll do it over and over and over again. They know what's on the line. They know they can go to jail for the rest of their life. They know they're destroying somebody else's life, but they don't care, because they're just going to go to prison. They're going to get back out, and they're going to do it again, and just repeat the cycle.
Well, and also,
you have that even in a quote unquote just society like what we have right now.
One of the things we have to remember, though, there's going to be a huge difference between what we have now and the way it would be in an anarcho society. Is that in the anarcho society, you're not going to have one court system. You're going to have multiple competing ones. That the one who gives what most people consider to be the fairest judgments, the most balanced judgments, is the one that's going to get the most business.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's true.
What do you
I'm
mean?
probably going to break up, and I won't argue my point.
I'm doing this on purpose so you can't prove your point.
Right, yeah.
It's the NSA,
hear
man.
me,
The
first
NSA's
of all?
on the line.
Can you hear me?
I
Yeah.
can hear you.
Fuck my life. Okay, you just can. All right, so I think it would still kind of come into the way we see jury selection today, where one side is trying to pick the better jury, the other side is trying to pick the better jury, so there's trying to stack the deck against the other side. Wouldn't we see that a little bit too? Like maybe the offender trying to petition to have this under a different court, or the one who's had the offense committed against them, wouldn't they be trying to find the court that would side with them most? I'm not sure that we would end up with the fairest trial.
Maybe not.
I think for me it would be the offended party would get the choice, and if too many people started picking one that was extremely biased one way, I suspect that society would have a way to affect him other ways, the judge other ways.
Yeah.
Such as, for example, if he's going way off the deep end, everybody stop selling him groceries, stop
Right.
doing anything.
I kind of see where you're going with that. As far as there's a primary consequence and a secondary consequence and possibly even a tertiary consequence.
Yeah,
that it has
sure.
more of a rippling effect that people just completely just disengage, and he's unable to actually do what he needs to do in order to live a relatively successful or healthy life.
Yeah.
You deal with somebody who's, and we even kind of see that a little bit to an extent now, even with, like the sex offender registry, which I'm not a huge fan of. I mean, and the reason I'm not a huge fan of it is because if you're going to have put one criminal in a database for everyone to see, you probably should put every criminal. I mean, they've, and that's kind of maybe a little bit of a sidetrack, but, in this mindset that you've paid your debt to society, and you're still in a database and you're still dealing with the repercussions of your actions, okay, great, cool. But that needs to be for everyone. There needs to be a freely accessible database, a notification saying this person that just moved in next to you likes to steal cars. But you're not gonna get that.
No.
Habitual speeder.
Habitual speeder living next to you. It's just one of those things. But there, even now there's a certain level of secondary consequence outside of what happens inside a courtroom. That it just kind of echoes, and I see that even in a more of a libertarian anarcho setting, that would still apply. People will not want to associate in this world, in this quote unquote fantasy world. You have the complete freedom of association. There's, people aren't going to want to associate with you. Therefore, you can't trade. You can't necessarily work. You can't provide for you and your family. So that's something else, and it's probably even more stiff in that situation than it is now because of a lot of the anti-discrimination laws that we currently have on the books.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, this is kind of where I wanted to go with this whole episode is when we use the term in an anarcho society, like this is largely a utopia unless something catastrophic happens. Or something extremely drastic happens, right? So it's got to be one of the two of those. It can't be something not drastic or not catastrophic for something like that to happen, in my opinion. Or, yeah, well, it'd still be drastic even if it was gradual over the next 2,000 years. It would still be a drastic change. But
yeah,
in my opinion, so I'll say that. We don't have to agree, but in my opinion, this is largely a utopian society that we're talking about. So we can really go as far in depth as we want to describe what should happen in our opinion and what we have read, right?
100% it's subjective. 100%
Oh,
subjective.
God,
And I'll be
yes.
the first one to admit that.
That's why there's so much argument about it. But I think it's really important for the people who doubt any type of anarchist society or any type of just even minarchist. If people who doubt that need to understand what reasonable libertarians think about what stuff like this should what should happen. The reason why we think speeding isn't a crime, right? Or the reason why smoking pot's not a crime. They should understand why we have these reasonings rather than just we're a bunch of potheads that don't know how to use stop signs. You know what I mean? Like we largely get that representation, or we're crazy and we bury weapons in the woods, and we always have that weird taste in someone else's mouth when you say, "Oh, I'm a libertarian," or "I'm an anarchist," or whatever. And I think it's really important that we go as far down the rabbit hole as we can, talking about these claims and what we should do or what we could do to educate a little bit better, rather than just talk at someone about,
Right.
"Oh no, of course not. That's no victim, no crime." Well, what the fuck does that mean? You know,
Right.
It seems straightforward for us because we say it all the time.
Yeah.
But
All
there may
right,
be that
so-
one person whose daughter smoked pot one time, and the next thing you know, she's sucking dick for Xanaxes down on the street corner, and now she's a prostitute or whatever, fucking ruined her life.
My
But they're like,
God.
so pot's a crime. Yeah, that went downhill quick too.
That was
I'm gonna-
the
I'm gonna start
Dick for
playing with it.
Xanax. Really, that's the best you could come up with. Is Xanax. Okay. I mean,
That's good
totem
shit,
poles.
man.
I might take a shot in the mouth for a totem pole. I'll be
Right,
honest
yeah.
with you. But you know,
Well,
it is
she
what
has
it is.
really bad anxiety, and she has a hard time with crowds.
Well, in this futuristic utopian society, we wouldn't necessarily need a piece of paper from a doctor we have to pay $300 for in order to get the medication that we want.
Yeah.
That's true.
So,
and you can
anyways,
just suck dick for money anyway.
well, let's see. I mean, that's some people's cup of tea. More power to them. So time out real quick. Seth popped up with a pretty big statement, but I think it's actually definitely has some application to it.
Oh my
so
God, Seth is just
Oh my
stirring
God,
shit.
that's it. It's not snarky. It's not, it's actually okay. The nature of art. He said, all right, listen. The
He's
nature
either
of art.
funny or stirring shit. I know this guy. I've known him for like 3 or 4 days.
He ended it with the shrugging emoji, so I don't think he's stirring shit up. But he might be. I don't know. Let's read it and find out. So
Let's read
the nature. Hey, Laura Lane. She just popped up. The nature of arbitration is just that. Arbitrage. I can't pronounce shit, just so you know.
Arbitrage.
Arbitrage. Then we'll go with that. Yeah. If the offender attempts to force the issue into a biased court, especially on a recurring basis, then the private court of arbitration of good reputation would also have an enforcement arm as a matter of insurance per se that would protect its own credibility. That, honestly, I don't see a flaw in that logic.
Nope.
And yeah, I don't either. I think that's sound, and I think that's where we would go. It wouldn't necessarily be this hierarchical system of courts like we have now. It's more of a matrix system. Like they're providing overwatch in every possible way to make sure that this utopian society that I keep referencing is fair and just.
And there is another thing that that just hit me that could be a possibility, and that is that the offender picks one court, the offendee picks another, and they get two opposing judgments.
That'd
At
be
which
cool.
point, a third court decides between the two, and that's the final decision.
I just square up in the town square.
Fuck yeah, go toe to toe.
I mean, Game
baby.
of Thrones style. Pick your champion and let's go.
Well, I mean,
Could you imagine the OJ trial going through 3 courts? That would have taken my entire 6th grade year.
But we also have to keep in mind something too, is that in this setup, in this structure, societal structure regarding the legal aspect of it, is that without rulers, there would be a hell of a lot less rules. So you wouldn't necessarily have congestion like you see
Sure.
nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
It's because the people have to come together and mutually agree, saying, okay, yeah, murder's bad. Okay, murder's bad.
Okay.
But they're not going to sit here like here's an actual law in the state of Alabama. Boogers may not be flicked into the wind. That is an actual law.
Bullshit.
How
Yes,
else
they can.
do you flick them? I'm sorry.
I've
I mean,
flicked millions of boogers.
but however, it is legal to drive the wrong way down a one-way street if you have a lantern attached to the front of your automobile. In this type of society
Does it
structure,
define
he
lantern?
should. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly. Could it be a flashlight? But in this in this like futuristic or fantasy-esque model, you're not gonna have shit like this. You know, somebody in the society who's coming together and they're talking about what rules are going to be governed by are going to be like, "Are you fucking kidding me about boogers? Really? We're really wasting our time about boogers." You know, so you're gonna have less rules to live by. A lot of them are just gonna be just basic common sense. You know, don't go around raping people. How hard is that? It's not that hard. I mean, it's not. You know, hey, it's just you
No,
don't rape people.
I've
You're breaking. We're losing you.
Yep.
Yep. You back yet? Nope.
Nope.
Sure.
You sure do got
But
a part of mouth. I don't know. I'm not sure what part of Georgia you're in, but by God.
For those who might be interested, there is one book that gives some examples.
We need to start a book club for you because you always referencing books. You need to like have an email blast that goes out every month. What your Horace's book club.
Well, oddly enough, because of what we cover, it would all pretty much be the same author.
Yeah.
And this actually is being turned into a movie in theory. So you know,
Very cool. Is it Rampage with it starring The Rock?
No.
No.
I don't know. As
too.
far as no casting, no.
Okay.
It's called The Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Okay, Einlein. We're back to Einlein.
It actually has a couple of examples of the of court systems, somewhat like we, you know, are just talking about tonight. So.
All right,
Austin?
I'm back
Okay.
in on my regular telephone. I'm just talking
Okay.
like I'm on a real cell phone, so it might
Well,
be like
everybody
lagging a
is
little bit.
seeing your phone number right now, just so you're aware.
Yeah.
Oh fuck yeah! Let's get those texts, bitches.
So if
send
anybody
nudes.
watching right now wants to just shoot a text with some nudie pics, he would love it. It would make his drive a hell of a
Let
lot
me
better.
get those nudes. Oh my god.
Oh
Orlone
God,
says he loves Einlein.
this is gonna be
Hey,
fun.
Hey Horace, I'm gonna need you to hook a brother up with some mean editing.
Yeah, I was about to say this is editing. This is
Ain't
gonna be a
help
bitch.
right now. Ain't gonna help right now.
Yeah, this is gonna be a bitch to edit.
And I don't
Perfect.
know what if you guys hear anything on the back end of my Slack is going off. I guess we got one of my co-workers working late and he's pinging me. So if you hear a clicking noise, that's my Slack. But anyway, so going back to it, you're talking about Einlein. Moon is a harsh mistress.
Yes, like I said,
Book club.
There are some courts. There are a couple of examples of how a court would work in an anarcho society. And the book's just a good read anyway. You know, and going back to another one of his books, I have mentioned before on here, Time Enough for Love. There is an example of a society that, we were talking about retribution, justice, sort of the, what is it, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth.
Mm-hmm.
In this one society, that's exactly the premise they use for justice. And one of the examples they give is driver hits somebody, runs over the guy's leg, and it's like 20 minutes before the ambulance can get there. Mm-hmm. So once the court case has been dealt with and everything, and he has been convicted, the sentence is to be what's called balanced, which means they take him out to the same road, same spot, same everything, run him over with an identical car, and then he has to lay there for 20 minutes waiting, while the ambulance is sitting right there to balance it out.
Huh. That sounds fun.
That's definitely an interesting concept. Yeah, and Megan comes up and she says that an eye for an eye makes the world blind. That's fair.
Yeah,
that's a fair statement. I mean, I don't
but
think
a tooth for a tooth makes the world hot.
Tooth for a tooth? Yeah, that's one. Yeah, there you go. Just so you guys know, in the city of Auburn, we're talking about crime, men who deflower virgins, regardless of age or marital status, face 5 years in jail. There's law. I mean, that's your government
Well,
hard at work for you right
What the fuck?
I don't.
now. So that tells me
I
that
got-
every single girl at Auburn University, not a virgin, because it's illegal to do it in Auburn. You see where I'm going with
Yeah,
this?
I don't know. I wouldn't have a problem.
Yeah, well, also in Huntsville, if an animal, this is the law, if an animal control officer is in uniform, it signifies to the public that he is an animal control officer.
Duh!
So
Kind of throwing those.
I can do that.
I don't know.
Can I just dress up as an animal control officer and just say it?
I don't
That's
know,
the way I
but
read that.
in Mobile, women are not allowed to wear lewd dresses in public. This is kind of going back to, I mean, it's these right here, and there's websites that are dedicated to them, and they're
Oh
they're
God,
fun
yes.
they're fun to read, and you're like, oh, that's funny. But then when you actually stop and you break it down, you realize that the people who are making the laws aren't trying to protect you. They're trying to enforce their own personal agenda, which makes the entire system more and more corrupt as time goes on. Down the line, originally when it first started out, people were like, yes, we're here. This is a noble cause, a noble job that we're doing. We're protecting the rights of our people. And then this shit actually ends up on the books, and it just spirals, and it gets worse, and it gets worse, and it gets worse. So what is crime? Are these actually crimes? Is bathing in a city fountain in Mobile actually a crime?
I would say no.
Versus, on paper, because a couple of people decided that it was, versus who's being harmed? Who is the victim besides the geese when it comes to bathing in city fountains? There is no victim.
Yeah, I was just saying, we were talking about, there has to be a victim. Let's be clear about one thing.
Society cannot be a victim.
Not be a victim.
Society is not a victim.
Period. Into discussion.
Not going to happen.
So.
It's apparently it is illegal to spit orange peels as well in Mobile. On the sidewalk. You can do it on the street though. That's what I'm talking about. These are the things that when rational people, especially rational libertarians, kind of take a step back and hi.
We have video.
Please pay attention to the road.
Do.
Please pay attention to the road.
Hold on, what road? I pulled over.
Okay, all right.
I found 4 buzzer service. I was like, fuck it, I'm pulling over. And
all right, cool.
I have my seatbelt on.
Good. And that seatbelt's a perfect one. I mean, like, honestly, you not wearing your seatbelt, and I'm a huge offender of this. I'll be the first one to admit it. Who is it hurting? Why is it a crime?
It shouldn't be.
It's somebody else telling you what you can and can't do inside your own property.
Right.
Is that even freedom? Is that liberty in any way, shape, or form? No, it's not.
No, it's not. But I do think that if your body is flying around your car killing people, then you should probably be charged for it if you don't die.
Okay.
So that's kind of the risk you run. But also, same no cop, no crime bullshit. No victim, no crime. If you're not flying around your car killing all your family members, why the fuck should you get a $50 ticket or whatever it is?
Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
That goes back to the mindset, and you, like I said, in the libertarian community, you have those who are just hardcore supporters of the thin blue line, and then you have those who are hardcore opposers to the thin blue line. And that's the thing, is that once you actually take a step back and you read a lot of these court cases, the police have no legal obligation to protect you. Their job is to generate revenue for the state and protect the state's interests. Not you, not the individual. This is not hyperbole. This is not me just being a bitch to be a bitch. This is actual court opinions, and I'm actually working on a book. Hopefully, in the next couple of months, I'll be able to actually get it finished. That actually sums up all of these court opinions. That's what they say. There's no obligation to protect the individual.
And I would say it's gone one step farther than that. As of the last day or two.
Oh yeah, you talking about the Supreme Court case where cops can shoot and ask questions later?
Yeah.
Well, I think the way they put it in the article was shoot first, think later.
Right, exactly.
That's fun.
I mean, basically, they can shoot. Qualified immunity covers them. They'll never face anything.
Right.
Period. And this is the U.S. Supreme Court. It's a done deal. There's nowhere else to go.
So it's more or less, if you don't listen, we will shoot you. If you don't do
Well,
what we say, we will shoot you. And
in
that,
the
that
ca-
and that going back to the cop in Arizona, that was actually proof. The dude didn't even get charged. Or did he get charged? Oh, he got acquitted for it, I believe.
well,
The
in this case that went before the Supreme Court, the cop didn't even say anything to her. No warning, no nothing. Just shot her 4 times. Boom, boom, boom. So,
So
you
I mean,
know,
if you're a Republican and you're waving the thin blue flag line, great. We know that the Republican side of the House, the conservative mentality, supports tyranny and oppression. Awesome. We know this. This is guaranteed. Just take a look at the people they have in play. You look at the Democrats, same goddamn thing. Okay, they support the police forces. They're on board. Okay, for libertarians, whether the big L or little L, you have to start drawing lines in the sand and say, if you actually truly care about individual liberty, then you cannot, in any way, shape, or form, given the way law enforcement is now, you cannot logically support law enforcement in the way
no,
that it is what it's currently become.
you know,
And now you'd go backwards into Andy Griffith days, where the sheriff was the local peacekeeper, the mediator between people, this, that, and the other. Okay, I'll give you that's no problem. I see that. They used the term selective enforcement, which is a legal concept that's still on the books. They use that a lot. Now it's just pretty much shoot to kill. It's a
yeah,
fucking free for all. And if you don't recognize this, if you refuse to see this, you're not actually paying enough attention to what's actually going on.
yes,
So
absolutely,
if you're waving that whole libertarian Gadsden flag and then the thin blue line flag, you got to pick one at this point
yeah,
because it's becoming a
for
war
sure.
against the people.
Well, and
That's
not just that, but this is what I started to say earlier and got sidetracked. Is when we look at it from a viewpoint of what is a crime, and the non-aggression principle and a victim. The vast majority of actual crimes from that standpoint are committed against the people by police.
true. But if you also take a look at current populations inside jails and prisons at a state level, you're going to see the gross majority of them are not violent criminals.
No,
These are non-violent crimes that are people are having to pay back their debt to society for carrying a fucking joint on them. They're not hurting anyone. Just because a couple of people in Montgomery say, "Hey, this is illegal. You can't do this." Now they have their entire lives ruined over a choice about them and what they ingest inside their own body.
hmm
And I would say the majority of the people, the libertarians, big L, little L, will see eye to eye on this aspect of it. But when you start throwing the culpability of law enforcement and making them responsible for their actions against the people, that's where you kind of start seeing people take sides.
well,
Yeah,
I mean,
you can see that with all the different sects of politics. Period. When you see like the Democrats, it's like, oh, cops better stop shooting people, but they're the only ones that can have guns. And
Exactly.
Republicans are like, let's get all the freedom except for whatever the cops decide they should take away from us. It's just
And
it's a fucking shit show.
and that's a logical debate that you should have with your quote unquote liberal, your quote unquote Democrat friends, is that if cops have no legal obligation to protect you as the individual, why do you want them to be the only ones to have guns? Why do you want to make everybody else defenseless? And now with the recent rulings, why saying that cops could shoot first and think later? How can you logically say that that's an okay thing? And you
yeah.
can't, unless you're completely okay with falling under the whole Stalinist Marxist mindset from the left.
Yeah.
Or shit, I'll even go out there and say the fascist Hitler aspect on the right.
There's also a debate that we should have with both our Democrat and our Republican friends as libertarians. The idea of us having the same or better firepower than our government. it's not that we all think we're badass and we're going to go shoot down fucking F-16s with our AR-15s. That's retarded. That's retarded.
I can do it.
I mean, I can do it too, but I'm not going.
I've done it.
Yeah, me too, but I don't tell anybody. But that's what they all think that we think. They're like, oh, so you're just gonna go take out the whole army with your AR-15? Well, yeah, if they don't leave me alone, of course that's what I'm gonna do. But realistically, we need to have that debate with people and say, no, this is just so if they decide to come shoot me in my house and then think later, I can just shoot them first, and then we go to court about it or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a real reason why I want to have the same firepower as they do, because I think they're grossly irresponsible and retarded. And if there are grossly irresponsible, retarded people running around with fucking high-powered rifles, I want one too.
Yeah. But you also look at it from a, and I know we're kind of a little sidetracking a little bit, but you can look at this too that, if 10% of the United States, which is what, about 3.6 million, give or take, a handful, something like that, were armed and stood up against military and law enforcement, that would put a huge dent in things. Not to mention all the international issues, and of course, people coming to our aid, which nobody would at this point, given our current standing on the international battlefield. But that's the thing, is that the amount of government agents is like this compared to like this, but we're so scared of this small amount, and they're willing to take the rules and they're willing to take the oppression from them, because that's what the right thing to do is. We're supposed to do that. We're supposed to do as we're told.
Yes. Seth just popped in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Again.
Yeah, he makes another good point. So first of all, we met on this group called Drinking Bros, and it's a podcast by Matt Best and those guys from Black Rifle Coffee Company and Art.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so Aaron had a conversation with him, and he seemed like a smart guy. So she was like, "Friend request my husband." So that's how we know each other.
Okay.
It's a virtual friendship, but he lives in Florence, and
oh wow,
every point that he makes with every idiot that tries to debate, like forced patriotism, the draft, and other things, he makes really great points, and they're all like this. So
God bless you, because I ran out of steam about a year or so ago when it comes to dealing with some of the idiots that are.
It's out of control, man. Last night we both got called pussies for not believing in the draft, even though we're both veterans. Yeah,
and I'm a veteran too, and I think that's a horrible idea. The last thing you want is conscripted soldiers. You think you're actually gonna do any damage with someone forced? I'm sorry, am I hurting you, Horace?
No. Hang on. Come on, Miss B.
Oh, okay. It's our token cat.
Seth is basically trying to talk about the prosecutors and the bullshit they do to make sure they get a conviction, and then later the whoever was the convicted felon now is able to get out of prison to prove that he was innocent but can't sue for damages.
Nope.
Right.
And that's basically what happened to my dad. My dad got sentenced to 25 years for some bullshit and got out and can't do shit about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, is one of the things that, you will often see in libertarian groups and libertarian memes. And, this is why you will see it. Badges do not grant extra rights.
Right.
Not in this motherfucker.
In a narco society like we're talking about, the police, which would be more accurate to describe them as a private security force,
right?
Which would probably be subscription based. It might be paid for by, businesses,
glorified bodyguards is pretty much the way you kind of look at it. Yeah.
But I mean,
New Jersey actually does a pretty good job of paying for cops the way closer to the way we think they should be paid.
Yeah.
So the more they basically the town, and it's probably not every burg, but there are several with the affluent communities. They will go looking for cops with extraordinary records and pay them more to come there, and everybody's fine with being taxed more for whatever reason. So it's kind of a community based. Yeah, I'll give you a couple more money so we can give this cop $100,000 because he does a good job or whatever. It's much different than let's just tax everybody, pay these guys $40,000 and hope they remember the shit they learned.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, like I said, in an anarcho society, their job is going to be completely different. It will literally be to protect and serve.
Right.
You know, the people, not the state. So you know, but they will be held accountable to the same standards as anyone else.
Yeah.
So if they go off the handle and start shooting people willy nilly,
Right.
they're going to be up on murder charges.
And that right there is one of the biggest issues is the lack of accountability and the lack of liability when it comes to actions while wearing a uniform.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
that's if
you know,
if they had that over their head, if they knew that they're going to be held to the same standard as a civilian, I assure you, shit would change real quick.
absolutely. And the flip side of that is also important. When a cop kills somebody and it's largely unjustified by most of society, like we see today, like that happens every week. It happens about as often as school shootings.
a
Just
lot
kidding.
more often.
I read that on an article today by some fucking Republican wacko that was saying that cops are supposed to kill people. Anyways, where the fuck was I going?
I don't know. You tell me.
Something about comparing the two. Yes. So when a cop just kills some guy, and society has now started picketing, and where somebody somewhere writes a big long heartfelt story about how cops are stupid, and they get off eventually. But if you kill a cop, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You might not make it to the courthouse. You know what I mean?
And
So it's not only is it a double standard, but it's a double standard.
and here's another dichotomy for you, as far as what police can do versus what if you do to them. Police can kill any dog they want willy nilly.
Right. Yep.
You kill a police dog,
That's the
you're
same. It's the
practically
same as
up
it's
on
the same
murder
as a human.
charges.
Exactly, and that's something that's being covered in the book that's going eventually, hopefully, coming out not in the too far distant future. But that's definitely one of the examples is police dog versus civilian dogs. I mean,
Yeah,
are you telling me that a police dog is worth more to the police department than a family pet is?
Right.
Sorry, I don't care if it's
Yeah.
trained to sniff everything.
There was some libertarian trying to school us the other day on eating meat as murder.
Okay, so this libertarian term is in case of you, for those of you kind of outside the circle, it's a very general term. Okay, not every single libertarian follows. I mean, honestly, you're probably gonna find every single individual in the world, personality-wise, that call themselves libertarian, kind of has their own way about going about doing things.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy tried to justify it through a non-aggression. That basically, if you can't be aggressive towards animals either because they have a right to life. And I was like, man, this is
Okay,
really tough. We're
well,
reaching.
I mean, that's
So, but that would be, especially if this anarcho society wasn't really an anarcho society, but a panarcho society. Then that might be a problem. You might stumble into the wrong group that you're like, oh, great, this is libertarian, it's all fantastic, and you go eat a steak, and then you're popped for murder, and you're out.
Well, no, it doesn't work. It wouldn't work that way in a panarchist society, though.
How does it work?
Each individual chooses their own system.
Right.
It's
How about you choose a system and don't find out until after you eat the steak that the steak's murder?
Hang on, let me finish.
I don't want
It's
to.
multiple systems. It's multiple systems within the same geographic area. There's not an enclave here, an enclave here, an enclave here. It's all one big thing. It's just what system do you particularly choose to follow?
think of it as gas station reward points.
Gotcha. So you can be in this vegan libertarian thing and not know it's about veganism or whatever, and then you eat a steak and they're like, "Oh, you're a murderer," and you're like, "Well, time out. I'm just kidding. I'm an anarcho-communist." That cool. You just
cool.
fly through and you're like,
no, it's just like, that's what y'all want to do. Fine, that's not my gig.
So after
after you just pull out your AAA card and you're like, I can eat meat.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just wondering because it's like in that type of society, like aren't you? Doesn't that kind of free you from being nailed down to whatever rules that society has, like that system has that you choose to begin with? It's like, I want to be in this system. Then you break one of their laws. You're like, fuck it, I was just kidding. I want to
I'm
be in
out.
another one.
I'm out. Sorry, my
Yeah.
bad.
Well,
I'm actually this now. It's
I mean,
it's
we are.
what
we're-
is that?
we're
That would
spiraling
be.
now.
I guess that would be considered like governmental fluidity.
Yeah.
I think you would
Did
have
you just assume my system?
it probably would require some kind of third party registration system. That
Yeah,
could, you
I mean,
know,
but it's a nightmare anywhere you look at it. I mean,
Yeah.
whether you keep the current system, try to adjust to a different system, the panarchy or the three different courts. It's a nightmare any way you go about it. The way I kind of see it from a pragmatic perspective is that those of you people who are waving the libertarian flag, who are trying to get into office, who are trying to make positive changes, should always look for the most anarchistic solution possible, meaning removing as much of the state out of the solution. So if pollution is a concern, you're going to want to try to find some other way to make the state take a step back and find another way to govern that through whatever means, whatever solution comes by. I see that too many of the quote-unquote libertarian crowd are just like, man, we just need smaller. We just need smaller. It doesn't stay smaller. If you want actual solutions, you've got to start thinking outside the box. You have to get away from this dream that we've been fed for generations that the government's there to help you and support you. I think this generation, more than any other generation, is starting to see more and more that that's not the case.
yeah. Well, I mean, for me, there's a whole slew. We could do a series of shows on
Yes.
the,
Layman's term is wishy-washy, fickle.
Yeah.
Thank you, Laura Lane and Megan. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
yes, but we could do an entire series of shows on if people paid attention to history, for example, what you were just saying, if people paid attention to history, they would know you'll never fix the system from the inside.
But you
Yeah.
can do more damage on the inside than you can the out. That's one thing I did learn from SLC Punk.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah, okay,
people
fair.
can't learn to stop fucking the same girl that keeps giving them chlamydia. So I doubt they're ever going to learn from history.
That is a T-shirt, sir. Can you get on that when you get back?
I'll get on it. Yeah. Yeah. It's
We've got more T-shirts coming out. Halston and I
Yeah,
have been
yeah.
throwing out all
we
kinds
got
of shit.
we got some shit.
Some shit. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, it's I think this we could have shows on all kinds of shit, but I think that I hate to keep using the term utopia because to me in my lifetime that's what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it feels like minarchy is a utopia to me, really.
It is.
Just because everything gets inflated more and more, and people you still see people on the Republican side of the House that are cheering for Trump for making business big and government small, and it's like, Jesus Christ, can you count? Like,
Yeah.
like
Let's take a look at our national debt. You tell me how small the government's
right?
getting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just one party borrows, the other party taxes. That's the way it goes.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Oh, Megan just popped up and said that because in case of those of you who don't know, which is probably the majority of you, Megan and I are birthday twins. We were born on the same day, and we're actually gonna have a joint birthday party this year. And she said we should think of a topic to cover on our birthday. Does our show come on our birthday? I haven't looked at the calendar, but that would be kind of fun.
Thomas
The
More
show's
can suck
wings-
it. That was my high school principal's name.
Who can suck
You
it?
sure can. Thomas More.
Where are you reading that at?
Seth Williams.
Oh, was it a direct message to you?
Nope.
I don't see it popping up. I don't know. Maybe there's a delay on
Yeah.
my end.
Hmm.
Oh yep. Birthday is on a Wednesday, so that'll be awesome.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We'll keep that in mind. We'll do like a live from the birthday party. Anyway, we probably need to start wrapping this shit up.
Yeah, I gotta finish driving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's what is crime? If there is no victim, there is no crime. Bottom line. And
Yep.
Right.
anybody can sit there and say, "Oh, well, not paying taxes is a crime." Well, who's getting hurt? Who's the victim? The state? Sorry,
Yeah.
that's not a
Nope.
person. That's a society. That's a fictitious construct. Yes, will they come after it? Yes, will they use guns to enforce it? Yes, of course they will. But it's not a
And
crime.
they'll be morally wrong in doing so.
Exactly. But when has the state been morally right? If you start breaking it down, you start looking at it, you're going to start seeing more flaws than you are going to see.
Oh yeah.
You know.
But
Perks.
as I have said before, even a broken clock is right twice
Right.
a day.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Like Cory Booker. Yeah, just
That's
because he has a libertarian idea does not make him a fucking libertarian.
no. He is a
Same.
hardcore liberal.
Yeah.
He
So
just happens to have some ideas that match up with libertarian ideas on, especially I think marijuana.
marijuana. That's
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 about
that
it,
should,
though.
that's the only thing. Um, she said the party will be on Saturday, but we can still do it. That's fine. I don't give a shit. I got an iPad.
Yeah, let's do a special birthday episode of.
That's fine.
We'll
That'll
come
work.
up with something.
Anyway, but yeah, going back to it. No victim, no crime.
Yep.
If you have that and you keep that idea in your mind whenever you're talking with people who are on the right or the left, and you start talking to them about it, they start to get pissed off. They get worked up when you don't have society as a victim.
Yes.
If there's no individual being harmed, no individual's property being harmed, there is no crime.
And I do
No
want
cop,
to
no
interject.
crime.
Yeah, I do want to interject something real quick here. On the entire subject of crimes and the sorry, injustice system. If it gets to a court and a jury, there is something a jury can do that can have a huge impact. If rather than going into it now, please refer back to our episode "Nullify Everything."
Right. That's book number 2. That's currently in the works as well.
That's jury nullification, where you judge not just whether the person's guilty, but you judge the law itself.
Right. And that is a secret that they keep from people. You'll actually go to jail if you mention jury nullification in some courtrooms.
That's book number 3, How to Survive in Jail.
How to survive in jail? Yes, I
So,
think it's something that Life Liberty Prep probably needs to do.
but no, I saw no reason to go over it in detail when we've already done an entire episode on it.
Yeah.
This is the second dead smoke detector we've had on the show.
Yes, Horace's smoke detector is dying again. Apparently, it's chirping. Laura Lane says it's not mine because I don't have smoke detectors because I don't need that type of oppression in my house.
I can't hear it, especially with the headset on. I can't, So.
Yeah,
I
and
will-
the fastest way out of jury duty. You damn
You
right.
goddamn
If you want
right.
to get out of
Oh,
jury
yeah.
duty, be like, how do you guys feel about jury nullification? They will have you out the door in less than 5
I'm
minutes.
gonna write that shit across my big ass forehead.
There you go.
Nullify everything. Fuck you guys.
Yeah, so apparently Megan also needs to change out the damn 9-volt battery in her smoke detector too, so don't feel bad. All right, so we're going to wrap this shit up. Last words. Horace, go.
I think I've said everything.
Good.
I mean-
all right. Nothing?
Guys, we are still looking for those nudie pictures of Jeff Sessions.
Oh,
No,
dear
we're not. Actually, I
God.
changed that on the page. We are now looking for nudie pics of Janet Reno for a $20 gift card. So if you can find some Janet Reno nudie pics, send it to horace@uncivilliberty.com.
And
So
if
I
you're
am still
once
looking
again,
for Jeff Sessions nudie pictures. So if you find Jeff Sessions nudie pictures, Halston@uncivilliberty.com.
Yeah.
okay,
And I'll forward them to Horace.
There you go.
and just once again as a warning, if anybody does this, and you are a member on our page, you will find yourself banned from our page very quickly.
Nah. Takes
And
a
then
lot
you
to get
can,
banned. It takes
you
a lot
can
to get
email
banned from our page.
admin@uncivilliberty and we'll turn you back on. Don't you worry about it.
That's fine. You just be like, Luke, Horace, just hit me up with the band hammer, and I'll be like, no, all right, I'll fix it for you. What's it worth to you? Nothing? That sounds about right. All right. So, nothing else, guys. We're gonna call this quits.
I'm glad you guys got to see me.
I'm glad I got to see you too. I miss you already.
I miss you guys
In
too.
case you guys don't know, Halston lives like 5 minutes down the road from me, so
Yep.
we see each other a lot. Anyways, you wasted another perfectly good hour and 13 or so minutes listening to us ramble about political shit. I appreciate that. Until next week, We'll see you.
Good night, all.
Peace.